At 8:33, we'll convene the Mendocino County Retirement Association together. And first item of business is pledge allegiance. Can you partner on these?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on our agenda is public comment. If you have any members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the board on items not on the agenda. Okay. Not seeing any, we'll go right to consent calendar. On the consent calendar, we have the minutes of May 9th, the May 2018 retirement report, and the monthly preliminary financial report. Are there any items for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment if I may. I was asked about the monthly preliminary financial report. We had a negative cash balance at the end of the month. And in the notes, it indicates that it was because of unexpectedly high active refunds. Those are actually withdrawals or inactive members withdrawing their funds. And for the month, we typically expect around 50,000 of those to happen in the month, but in this month, in the May, is it May we're reporting here? April. In April, we saw about 200,000 of refunds flow out at the end of the month. So it was higher than expected, and that's what caused the negative cash balance. So.
Any items people want to discuss further? Okay, if not, we'll...
I do have a question on number 8 about the calendar. The July board meeting will be moved to September.
We're switched. We're
Yeah, item,
in the minutes.
board meeting
Oh.
calendar.
In the minutes?
In the minutes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
July
Is-
board meeting will be moved.
We're talking about the offsite.
Oh,
But it says July.
okay.
It actually, September would be moved to September the 19th.
At 10, yes.
Okay.
It's the off-site is what it should state, is the off-site board meeting will be moved to September 19th, 2018 at 10 a.m. And this meeting will be held on the coast. My apologies, I missed that.
Okay, with any other amendments, corrections? If not, then with that correction, we'll approve the consent calendar by unanimous consent. Okay. Next on our agenda is discussion possible action regarding investment matters, monthly investment report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, you have the monthly flash report from Callan in your packets. You can see that in the month of May, our total assets increased just over $3 million, bringing us up to $524 million in the total fund at the end of the month. Our portfolio return for the month was 58 basis points, slightly behind our benchmark of 65 basis points. However, that monthly number has zeros for all of our real estate funds, and the benchmark has non-zeros. So we could, at the quarter end, we'll see an uptick in that. We won't see the monthly numbers tick up, but we'll get the real estate return in there at the quarter end. So I'd be happy to take down any questions you may have and refer them to Callan if you like.
You know, James, we used to lag a quarter with real estate all the time at CalSTRS, so everybody expected it. Would it be better to not have them try to come up with some sort of a number month end?
Well, we don't try to come up with a number on month end
No,
in terms of return.
Yeah.
We do get a quarter end number. It's a little more delayed than the typical monthly numbers are from our other managers, but we do get those numbers in our quarterly reports. So,
But if we didn't expect them at the end of each quarter, would it give us either a more accurate or a less demanding number as far as Callan is concerned?
I don't
Think it
think,
would help?
I don't think it would make a difference. You know, the managers that we have and the real estate funds that we have are, they're used to quarter end reporting and the time schedule involved there. We're not into much more high octane type real estate that would have more difficulty with valuing on a quarter end basis.
Okay.
We're in pretty traditional core plus real estate portfolio, so I think we're okay with
Good
where we
answer.
are.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we have the report. Do we need a motion to accept it or just accept it?
Just,
Accept
it's
it.
just a report for the board.
Okay, so then we're on to, communication strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, you have before you a draft communication strategy, as promised, was due this quarter. A lot of time and effort has gone into this. I did include here one comment that's not in the final version of this communication strategy, and that is a potential alteration of our vision statement, and that's highlighted in red on the draft document. You've had an opportunity to review it. I'd be happy to answer questions or throw it out for discussion to see what the trustees think.
Let's do these.
Are you taking comments on the draft as a whole?
Absolutely.
Okay. I was still trying to get my thing to rotate right, so I wasn't totally paying attention. But one of the things that, and I talked with you about it yesterday, James, but one of the things that I thought was the most important, especially when people are asking me questions, is what is our role as a board member, because people want you to fix things that aren't in our control to fix. And so I was telling James that last bullet under the key messages per target audience on page 3 of that, you know, by law, the primary duty of loyalty for MMRO is to our members. You know, that's kind of the last bullet, but I kind of think it needs to be, you know, emphasized a little more, at least in the conversations that I have with people. Because again, when we talk about, when we're telling the press and the public and everybody that we do what we're doing because we're required to follow the law, they don't know what the law is. And, you know, and it's something that doesn't necessarily need to be on this piece of paper, but it's something that jumped out at me, and it's something that I use when I talk to people who ask me about it as well.
You know, to me, that would be a little more clear if it said by law, the primary duty as fiduciaries for Sarah is to our members, instead of, it sounds like almost above everything, you know, yes, we are concerned about our members, but we're all fiduciaries to the fund, and so we don't really have a choice. That might be a little more clear way to put it.
Where are you looking right now?
I was on page 3 where we're talking about the key messages, because I thought the draft of the strategy was great. I thought overall it was wonderful. I'm just looking
Yeah,
at
but
things
it's
to
also
help me when the people are communicating with me, you know, what would help me. And this isn't necessarily something that we would hand out to anybody. It's just something to help.
So on page 2, there is another paragraph that references the, Prop 162 in the California Constitution. It's the second paragraph above the heading Communications, Objectives, and Strategies. I'm just mentioning that
It does say that.
it's shown in another spot as well.
Okay.
So,
I'd be more than happy if I were thinking about those comments combined there. On that last bullet point, I might rephrase that to something like, by law, the primary fiduciary duty of
Here we
loyalty
go.
for MSARA is to our members.
There we go.
And move it up, maybe? Not maybe to the top, but maybe to number 2.
Number 2 and number 1 kind of go together, and 3.
Number 3 maybe.
Well, I think, as James communicated with me yesterday, this isn't, this list isn't going anywhere. It's an internal document, so.
I mean, we will post this to our website, it will be publicly available, but it's not something we're going to be sending out. It is primarily, much like our strategic plan, it's our guiding document is the intent of this. And I view these as, these 5 bullets, it's, you pick out the message that's appropriate for the communication that you're having with the individual. So, what order we put them in really doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to move that up to number 1, or leave it at 5, or put it anywhere in between. It really doesn't matter to me. I just thought it was, one of the things that came through to me in drafting this was, that's really not something that we've talked about very much externally. We all know it here at this table. And I've talked with trustees. I struggle with communication. I have weaknesses there, but I know exactly what my problem is. I assume that everyone knows what I already know, and that's not often the case.
Ever.
This is one of those things that we know, so sometimes we forget to tell people that. And it really, drafting this strategy helped me kind of bring that front and center, that we need to be out there and be proactive about telling this specific point to people. We're doing a lot around telling people the other points, but we forget that first thing. So,
Richard?
So if people want to rearrange the furniture in this bullet point section, I actually looked at it myself, and I think what Kathy has brought up, I think that is really a key issue. And if you want to rearrange them, I actually just reassign numbers to them. I think plan is stable and sustainable is a sum of the things that are in this list.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I think the primary duty of MSARA is number 1 thing on the list. Then I go as we're professionally managed as number 2. We have a plan to reach full funding as number 3. The associate is working to reduce unfunded liability 4. The sky is not falling 5. And the bottom line to the whole thing is the plan is stable and sustainable.
I like that.
And it's a good document. I think you've done a good job, James, with this. And if we do want to mess with this, I might suggest that reorder.
I like that reorder.
And to get the message you're saying, that's what we hear most is, it's sky is falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just reading the paragraph that Jeff pointed out on page 2. It's very clear there. It's just, I guess, I'm drawn to the bullet points more. And when I got to the bullet points, it wasn't emphasized as much as in that paragraph.
So to make, do you want to figure out if people want to redo that, or if we just talked about it, we're done? Well, each individual discussion point.
So do people like the reorder that Richard just described?
I like it.
I like it too.
Fine with that.
Yeah.
so it's just a reversal of the order?
Yeah. Aren't you smart? Observant. How's that? Well, maybe you're smart too.
Living
You
by
may
my,
not well be down at this end of the table.
living by my motto, it's better to be lucky than good.
So I will continue with some comments if I could. So starting on page 2, target audiences and key messages. I actually believe there aren't just 2 groups, and I think incorporating the plan sponsors as one of the stakeholders shouldn't be. I think, we have our clients, we have our sponsors, and then we have the press and the public. And I think, I know it's internal, but I think if one of the sponsors looked at that and said, hey, we're more important than that. I think we need to realize that too in our strategy.
You're not just a stakeholder.
That a sponsor is not is not
Well-
a stakeholder in the, it says that stakeholders have two categories, I think there,
Well, so
subcategories.
the strategic plan identifies only two groups.
Ah,
Okay, so that's from the strategic plan,
okay.
is we have clients and stakeholders. Here is where we break stakeholders into the three groups of plan sponsors, press, and the public. And that's indicated at the top of page 3, where we have the 4 groups that we're addressing here
In your matrix.
in the communication strategy.
Correct. Okay, I totally get that, yeah.
So I don't necessarily want to wordsmith it, but I just want to raise a point. So on that, on those 5 bullet points that we just reversed, I actually think when you look at our plan and the reforms that have been put in place in the last, I don't know, 6, 7 years, they've moved this system farther, faster than we're seeing very publicly being the reforms being put in place by CalPERS. I mean, we're seeing cities and counties during CalPERS reeling from the higher contribution rates, but really it's because CalPERS moved slower than MMRO moved.
Definitely.
And that's one thing I've been mentioning to people, that you're seeing some news reports about CalPERS and cities and counties that are in that, just trying to grapple with that increased contribution. And that we're not seeing the same increase at Mendocino County because that was already absorbed over the last several years, or most of it. And so, I don't know, I almost would make the case that we've moved farther and faster than most of our peers in the state, is, tooting our own horn a little bit, on that bullet point, because the last part of that bullet point where it says, the association is working to reduce unfunded liability, I think kind of undersells the speed and
continue to maintain our position of leadership.
That's the word that I thought of as you spoke. That 37 counties have been leaders in addressing the issues that have been raised.
most, maybe, I don't know, Paul.
I think more of them than none of them. Okay, but us specifically.
The 3 at 16. Much below.
Many, 37 ads, yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know if that really needs to go in here or not, but it is something I've been seeing myself, the contrast, and I've been mentioning it to people, and I think it kind of actually reassures people a little bit that because they're reading of the impacts of the CalPERS changes, and they're worried, oh, does that mean Mendocino County is even in worse state?
I think it's valuable even for our members to fully understand that information, because I've talked to people that thought we were going to be impacted by those recent news stories. They thought that we were suffering from that, and their county employees that just weren't familiar with how it worked. So,
Well, how do we incorporate an affirmative statement like that in our messaging? This is what we've done, and this is, we moved ahead on this, ahead of others, and therefore we don't anticipate this higher taxes, or whatever, however you want to put it.
So I might alter that, what is currently the second bullet, the sky is not falling, period. While MMRO does have a sizable unfunded liability which imposes the cost, the association has been a leader in taking proactive steps and is continuing to work to reduce the unfunded liability in a prudent manner.
Nice.
Is that?
Yeah, sounds good.
I mean, it doesn't specifically state that,
The contrast with CalPERS, yeah.
but, I mean, we reference that we are a leader in this space. And you can easily mention that CalPERS is not.
When you say you're a leader in the space and you have a significant deficit, does that mean you're a leader in deficits?
Just imagine how much worse it could be.
Yeah.
Those laggards over at CalPERS.
In their defense, I will have to say, for years, both funds tried to go throughout the state, because I know I did it, speaking every place we could to try to say, this is coming, and it isn't until it really hits the bottom line, and it comes up against union negotiations and raises for people that everyone goes, oh horrors. Nobody listened until the last probably year. There was an attempt to say, and it's gonna, increases are gonna come in small numbers to start out. And then when the small numbers become larger numbers, people's attention is finally riveted on it. CalPERS does try occasionally to do things right. And I didn't say that.
So are there any other suggestions for the communication strategy?
Just general comment. Sorry, I didn't wait for you to call on me. I guess probably, and James, you saying that you assume other people know what you know. I guess I was reading this in depth because I don't know everything yet, because I'm new, and I'm thinking, this is really going to help me, but it goes back to our conversations at the workshop that we had last fall about sheets that we can have as trustees when we go out and talk to people. So I think I was kind of combining, that request with the strategy that was on the work plan for the year as well. But I think overall it's great. I'm just trying to get as much detail as I can, because when people ask me questions, I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. So anyway, I appreciate your work on this.
So if I may, to that point, that is the next project in the communications area, is putting together, for the life of me, I can't remember what we called it.
A fact sheet or?
Something to that effect. It's not a fact sheet because we already have one of those,
Okay.
but it's a basic question and answer type of format is how I'm envisioning this.
Okay.
Message management.
Specifically for trustees. Here's a lot of the questions that you're going to get or that you will hear. Here is some information around this question.
Good.
Tailor it for your own response, but try to keep it to a manageable number of pages, because it can get overwhelming very quickly. But yes, that is the absolute next step in this, is drafting that document. Once we have the strategy in place, and we, after the offsite, we did talk about the communication pieces that the board wanted, and I was very adamant that we needed to start with the strategy, because I'm very much a top-down strategy, then drill down from there type of person. So this is the first step, and then we'll start developing those other things. And this, I will tell you, I think has been very, very helpful as I prepare to draft those next things. Having this framework is going to help me a lot. Put together a piece that I think will give you everything that you are hoping for.
Board member cheat sheet.
I have another question about, it's kind of a choice of words question. On page 6, item C, MMRO is trusted by members in the public. Item 3, and then item C, MMRO eliminates factual inaccuracies in news stories. Are we hiring Guido? Or should that be addresses or corrects? Because I don't know that we'll ever eliminate. Just that was the interesting choice of words around it. It's produces or works to. And then it's like, boom. There won't be no factual.
That's our goal.
Trusteeship for dummies.
What's this?
Trusteeship for dummies.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm happy to do it. I think reduces or corrects.
I think, addressing or corrects, I don't we want to get them, you know, in the context of the sentence in the group, it's like, oh my God, you wrote that again. Okay, let's eliminate it. No, can't do that. Let's correct it or address it.
Respond.
Correct it. I don't even know how, you try not to respond to it, but you try to get the right information out. I think,
Okay.
yeah. Those are nuances for sure.
Any other thoughts or suggestions on the communication strategy? Okay, would you like a motion to adopt it?
Before we go there, I did want to stop and ask about the alternative or potential alternative vision statement, if there's any thoughts on that.
The board.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not changing the strategic plan today. I just wanted to throw that out there and see if there's any concerns, thoughts about that, because we will review that next quarter. It's up for annual review,
Yeah,
so,
no, I like it.
okay. I believe a motion to adopt the communication strategy as amended would be appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
Judy can say who seconded that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, well then we're on to discussion possible action regarding the amendment to agreement with Managed Medical Review Organization.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, you have a proposed contract amendment for the contract with MMRO, and you have a cover memo explaining the amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I will move that we adopt the contract amendment.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Right, well, then we're on to general board member discussion.
Dan?
Yeah?
I might say that Jerry can help me here, but Jerry and I attended the trustees roundtable. That's the first thing I had gone to, but very informative. And part of the benefit, as always, when you go to a conference is hearing what other people in other systems are doing. And that was very interesting to meet other people and talk with them. But we had a couple of speakers. One was very interesting and one was not so interesting. But the one who kept our attention was an attorney from San Diego that is suing the Kentucky retirement system. And one of her law school classmates is a sitting judge in Kentucky, and she asked her to take on this project. But it was interesting, and I saw the other trustees in the room get a little concerned about some of the things that the attorney was saying. That she's suing the retirement system because she does not feel, and some of the trustees directly, personally, because she does not feel like they were prudently investing. And it was interesting. Primarily, the hedge funds were the issue there.
Yeah.
Yeah. She might add anything to it. I mean, she was saying things like, you know, what's a reasonable return rate, and she didn't think that 7% was prudent and reasonable. And, you know, she had a lot of comments that were getting a lot of people upset.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was her response? Did people comment back to her or not really?
No,
I
that
think they squirmed a lot.
Yeah,
but,
nobody really said anything.
her time is running out, and she will be available during lunchtime for
Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, every part of this is eye-opening. I think, you know, going to, is it Sackers that's at, in Malibu, what's,
Pepperdine.
That's
Pepperdine,
Calipers.
Calipers.
Calipers,
There will be a lot of wonderful speakers and events back then. This was a really good, you know, one day down and dirty what's going on in the systems and a good chance to meet people. So much
I'm glad
more to
we went.
come. Yeah, I'm glad we went as well. It was nice.
Where was that lawsuit filed? Against who? I mean, I'd just be interested in,
KRS, Kentucky
KRS.
Retirement System.
I'd be interested in seeing what the allegations are, and if there's anything interesting, I'll report back.
I think I might have a
I've seen
printout
it.
of this somewhere.
Nothing interesting for us.
No?
It's the hedge fund, black box,
Yeah.
inappropriate investments.
Yeah.
I'm not so much interested in the specifics as much as what the legal argument, because there's so much discretion given to boards, so
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Mhm.
And they only made 7%, and she's suing them because of that.
I
No,
don't-
they made, the hedge funds made far less than 7, but the assumed rate of return was 7. Or they lowered it to 7.
And the whole discussion of the fees and
Oh, that's,
promises,
and there,
The 2 and 10 when you're making 3 is, no.
yeah.
and there, some indication that some individual trustees were, what we talk about, pay for play
Pay for
or
play.
something with the hedge fund.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, that's what she's out alleging, so.
Nothing that I think any of us have to worry about.
Isn't that how it goes? If Johnny gets A's, he's a genius. If he gets D's, the teacher's an idiot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good parent.
Or a typical one.
Yeah, typically, that's true.
Okay, any other general board member items?
Well, I got something I was thinking about after last month's meeting, and we were talking about teachers not having social security.
Yes.
And I mentioned that we're integrated with social security here, which takes some of the burden off the retirement system, because our benefit is reduced because it's being supplemented by social security. And I don't know that we've ever talked about whether that can be quantified, how much of a savings to the retirement system there is, because back in the 70s, the county decided to put everyone on social security. It used to be optional. You could go on or not go on if you didn't want to. And I don't know if it's something the actuaries can come up without a.
So the Social Security integration, because we're integrated, our members pay a reduced contribution rate on the first $116.67 per pay period.
Right.
And then they pay a higher contribution rate after that.
And our benefit is reduced.
And our benefit is reduced by the same amount. Although it's a different number because it's a monthly benefit versus a bi-weekly contribution amount. It's something like $3,000 a year that we're not collecting contributions on and not paying benefits on. I think it may be less than that. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but while it is a number, I'm not sure how significant that number would be. And I'd have to think through what that would mean. Let me think about that.
It doesn't sound like it's worth pursuing much, but I got thinking about that. And I'm surprised that the state hasn't decided that it makes sense for the schools to integrate with Social Security, to put some of the burden on the federal government instead of all of it on the systems.
Well, the downside is the employer then has, if the employees go into Social Security, the employer then has to pay Social Security taxes,
Yeah, 765.
which is probably higher than the offset you're getting from the reduction in pension contributions.
And Tim, to follow up on that, I said at the last meeting that my disability retirement is that I don't get any tax advantage. And Nora and Judy followed up for me on that and checked with CalSTRS, and it is the CalSTRS benefit that's written specifically for and by CalSTRS, that none of the members on a disability
Hmm.
retirement,
Oh, wow.
get a tax benefit.
Wow.
One more of those wonderful pluses for teachers to encourage you to go
Wonder-
into teaching.
Now, CalPERS, they have.
CalPERS is a different system.
But CalSTRS.
CalSTRS,
That's kind of crazy, yeah, that's all teachers.
yeah.
And it was really an IRS designation because they consider it workers' compensation. And workers' compensation isn't taxable.
But
It is or isn't?
if you were hurt at work or not, you retire in CalSTRS, you pay your taxes.
Wow.
So, just for people who have a county retirement to realize that's one more benefit that is different from what educators get.
Glad I didn't go into teaching.
I could certainly be a lot more comfortable if I hadn't.
Well, isn't the county employees' pension benefits that they receive, isn't that taxable income?
Not the
But not as
Oh, not the
disability.
disability.
First 50%.
If there's a disability.
First 50% is not taxable on disability.
Okay.
I actually did have one question I thought about the lawsuit you guys were talking about, reminded me, the CalPERS course I was at was talking about the lawsuit against the Stanislaus retirement system. I guess Jeff was wondering if you heard anything about that, or it was O'Neill versus Stanislaus. And it was actually, I think it was a trustee suing the board along with a few other people. But it was all about discretion. It just reminded me it was some of the same issues. And so it popped up a couple of years ago, and I think now it went out on appeal and it got remanded. So it's going back in, and they're putting, one of the attorneys that presented at our course was talking about how they're putting together transcripts to try to figure out how the board reached their decision, which was interesting, going back and basically reviewing all the discussion, trying to understand how everyone reached the decision, because that factors into whether or not that decision was ultimately an abuse of that discretion. So I remember them talking about it, but I just thought that might be interesting to find out.
No, it is,
if that's
and I
right.
think we've talked about that when we've discussed fiduciary duty, that sometimes it's not so much the ultimate decision that you made, but how did you get there, and what input did you have from experts, and what discussions did you have, and it's really a lot about the process. So I think that that's why they're going through that exercise.
Figuring that out.
Yeah, and one other thing that the Kentucky suit brought up, when new members come on the board, each year we pay our fiduciary insurance. But when new members come on the board, I guess I want to be sure that they're covered from the time they start, since they're fiduciaries from day one. That, you know, we are being sure people pay, that we're not just doing it annually, and there can be a lag time between the time someone comes on the board and the time they're covered.
So our fiduciary insurance covers everyone that is a fiduciary for the board, in terms of employees and trustees. The $10 or whatever we pay every year
Yeah.
is a waiver of recourse. It's just, we have to pay, we collectively, who are fiduciaries, have to pay at least $100 towards that. But it doesn't have to be by individual.
Oh, good.
We simply have to show that it was paid for by non-association funds. We just spread it out across the group as a fairness thing, but it covers everyone,
Okay, cool.
whether you've paid to that or not. So,
You know, yeah, it's good to know, yes, because I was telling Jerry, I haven't paid anything.
Get my checkbook.
It's always prepaid by the association with a full policy premium. So it's all prepaid. That's why when you make your check out to pay, it's done to members because they're repaying the system.
Thank you.
Okay, any other items before we go into closed session? Jeff, do you want to just reiterate what we're doing in closed session?
Sure, we're going into closed session to talk about two applications for service-connected disability retirement, Tony Black and Patricia Lizon.
And? public performance evaluation.
Ah, yes, the performance evaluation of our retirement administrator.
Okay.
Okay, I forget.
Yeah, you can get the door open.
Thank you.
That's what I thought.
Eight.
They're just one.
Oh, you're right,
But
6
there's
to
a
1.
question, what happened with that
Oh, Catherine's not.
substitution
7 to 1.
bingo?
Because
I get to replace
He gets to vote
the new.
because 2 elected members are absent today.
Ah, okay.
Who's absent besides Catherine?
Catherine.
Craig.
Craig.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He, by the way, he's doing double shift night duty and all that stuff, so he was unable to come here today. Okay,
So 6 to 1, 7 to 1, and 8-0.
God, I could have made motions too.
This was your opportunity.
You were
Could have-
still
could have
very
been a contender.
effective, Richard.
It's never not
okay,
here.
so with
Move
that,
us
we're
just by your
Done.
presence.
with that, we're gonna adjourn it at 11:23.
Right. Are you going to the dentist today, Mr.
Equipment.
Chairman?
Uh-oh.
Oh my God.
Dentist
Oh.
Yeah.
today?
2 weeks ago, I kissed a Blarney Stone, so I
They
feel
scheduled me
like
for-
things like that.